And good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everybody. Welcome to another edition of GMAT Club's YouTube Debrief. My name is Evan. For those of you who do not know me by that name, I really hope most of you do by this point. You probably know me by my forum name, Nightblade354. If you don't know me by that name or by the YouTube name, something tells me that you guys aren't part of GMAT Club, and I highly recommend that you become part of our loving and growing family. Today, we have a treat. We have a person who made an incredible leap in her score, going from, oh goodness, 400 to 720, correct? So a 320-point increase, which is rare in itself. And most of you watching should know that jump at this point. But she also pulled off a near miracle by accomplishing that score with a fever. And again, for those of you who didn't know either of those two items before joining this live YouTube video, I think I understand maybe why your reading comprehension isn't where it should be. So please be aware of that. But join me this hour to discuss how she raised her score by 320 points and somehow battled a fever, which I assume is not COVID, but maybe we will find out if it was. Please welcome me in joining us for this hour, Ayushi. Dang it. Ayushi, welcome.
Ayushi. Thank you so much, Evan. Thank you for having me here.
Oh, pleasure is ours. Tell me a little bit about yourself. Tell our users a little bit about yourself before we dive into some questions.
Okay. I am Ayushi Verma. I am from India. So basically, I'm not a native speaker, but Verma really helped me just jump up to the score that I wanted. To score more than 700 for sure. And I am a product management a manager otherwise. And yes, so it has been one hell of a frustrating, a lot of ups and downs of a journey for me. I hope I am able to say things which you might have some takeaways to take from.
Wonderful. I appreciate it. And I'm sure that our users will, without a doubt, get a lot out of this. As someone who, again, was able to raise her score by one of the most significant increases I've ever seen in my life. Not the most. One of our moderators holds that title. I forget which moderator she is. Her name, not or in the form, not the actual. Like I know who she is, but that's neither here nor there. This is your show. So the first thing I want to hear about, and I'm sure users do too, is what made you decide to take the GMAT? And once you came to that conclusion that you did want to take it, what was the first thing that you did?
Actually, I mean, I knew about GMAT quite earlier, but I actually got to know about GMAT in in 2021 and 2020, and that was the time when I was really trying to think about. So I've always been interested in social entrepreneurship and the way like my career trajectory that I've been looking at. So MBA became sort of a thing. So I come from a sociology background and I have a good sense of what's happening in society and all of that, but I really wanted to build in the business aspect of it. So that's how I thought about I'll take MBA. So I didn't I'll go for MBA. That's how I decided to take GMAT. And my first step was to really try to figure out what to do. Like I'm a person who's very meticulous with what exactly I have, like what are things that has to be done. So I was really trying to get what exactly it is. But yes, I did not start out on a very good note of understanding really what this exam is. But initial step was how can I really shorten my effort, because I was really busy. So I really wanted to just do it in the shortest amount of time.
I understand. Yeah. By the way, folks, if you have questions for Ayushi, please post them in the YouTube chat, and we will try and get to them at the end. And as kind of a funny roundabout here, Ayushi was joining us when Shelby, as Ayushi knows her, but you guys know her as Selby. As Selby and I were doing our Instagram videos. We haven't done those in a couple of weeks. We're going to try and get back to those, but Selby and I have been fairly busy and our schedules haven't matched up. So we are hoping to get back to those Instagram videos. But if you, yes, it's those of you commenting.
I mean, if I could just intervene to say, like,
sure,
a lot part of this journey, GMAT Club has been like more than has been the majority contributor in my whole journey in terms of small little details about, like, there's this part where Selby's there's this reel where she says what are the red flags, and oh my god, I actually had those red flags in my solving 700 questions, not taking the mocks the way I needed to, all of those things. You guys just make it fun and to really, you gotta be on your track, girl.
That is our goal here at GMAT Club because we have no agenda. So when we have no agenda, we can make it fun. We can make it stupid. But we also allow you guys to learn because we're not trying to force you one direction or another. Again, for everyone watching this and thinking, "Oh my God, why are they, popping up GMAT Club?" It's because everything's free. Everything. We don't charge for a thing. Enjoy it. Just go have fun. We want you guys to succeed. I'm not kidding when I say that. There's nothing. There's no hidden thing here. It's just do well. And then because you guys join our website, we get to charge advertisers, but still, we want you guys to do well, so that way more people show up and so on and so forth, and blah, blah, blah. All right. I appreciate the shout out for GMAT Club, Ayushi. When you first started your journey, what was your initial goal? And what was the timetable like? Because I know you first got a 400, meaning, and I can't imagine that was your goal, and I can't imagine that was sort of within the time frame. So what was that like?
So the very first thing, like the first test when I 400, when I started out, I was trying to understand it, but I really like didn't have the idea about what sort of the scores were like. And I mean, I did not get debriefs or anything where people started out with 400, and that was really demotivating. I have always been good with tests, but taking that first test where it was humiliating. Like, I mean, my actual score would have been lesser than 400 because I was taking it with lots of breaks. But when I was starting out, to answer your question, my goal in terms of my target schools, I knew I had to get more than 700, but I didn't really know that how possible or impossible was it. It was really later on, after when I actually had crossed the 600, was I realizing that is it even, I really honest, I mean, this is for people who probably are doubting themselves, that I was really doubting myself, can I even do it? Because it would just, why am I not making progress? That did happen. And I was like, what is 200 the outer score? Is this 200 250 the outer limit of how much you can improve? Well, that is, turns out it's not.
Oh
So
yeah, no,
yeah, I
you
mean,
can.
my,
There are
yeah, please go
people
ahead.
who I'm sure could score a 200 and then go to an 800. I mean, that's literally going to the two extremes, the absolute extremes. But I'm sure it happens. But I mean, you are a cautionary tale in that if you read examples online, you may give yourself this false expectation of, oh, I can only, this is my ceiling. When no, you can go higher. You can.
Correct.
This test is meant to be beaten.
Yes, actually, in fact, I came across a debrief a little while earlier. I don't remember the name of the person from US itself, and he had made a similar kind of jump. And honestly, that was really nice to see personally. Yeah.
So let me ask. You said you hit that 400 and you were demoralized. How were you? Because a big part of our user base sees test scores that they don't want to see, and it can bring them down. How were you able to push through enough to continue to motivate yourself to get to that next step, to get that next test, to see that improvement, and then say, okay, gradual improvement here. We can continue to get to the goal. How were you able to do that?
It was multitude like a lot of factors put in together, but one of the major thing was, I mean, I had my end goal set. I needed a certain score, and I wasn't going to settle on a score lesser than that. So I mean, for me, that's a personal thing where I have set my goal. I am going to achieve it no matter how. That's just my thing. um, Other than that, it's just reasoning through it. I mean, I have had both side of it, where when I'm not able to do it, I would get really frustrated. But GMAT in itself is a really beautiful exam. It's just never testing you on how much do you know, but testing you on how well do you apply the concepts. And because I knew that what sort of test it is, I knew that if and when I reach that point, that also means that I have built certain skill sets into me, skill sets into me, And that was the whole idea where I really wanted to put it into it, because it was something that I knew by the end of it, at the end of the tunnel, there was something which I'm going to appreciate for myself, not in terms of the score, but also in terms of the person that I am going to become. So I just, all these factors would pull in for me to really just keep going.
Wow. So it's all coming from here, basically.
Yeah.
All coming from here. And again, lesson learned to anyone who's watching. You need to be your biggest cheerleader. You need to be your biggest motivator. If you're not
And
motivated to achieve that dream and that goal, you're not going to get there.
and sure, I have not been alone. Like my friends, they have been really supportive. I mean, I have missed out on the social life a lot. I have missed out on the trips, I've missed out on the parties, and all of it. I mean, it requires that. At least it required that for me. And yeah, I mean, I have people around also to thank.
So let's now take a step back. Let's go to the beginning of your journey. I want to know how long you were studying and what you were doing to study. And you mentioned you didn't really have a life. Were you studying in the morning? Were you studying at night? You were studying at work or not at work? What were you doing initially at that 400? And then what steps did you take thereafter to change the way you were studying to see that rapid score increase?
So initially when I started out, so that 400 meant that I had a lot of conceptual gap. So
Yes.
initial part of, yes. So the initial part of it went into really understanding. So when I was actually taking the test, I love maths. I have always loved maths, but I haven't studied it for 10, like I haven't studied since 2010 after my 10th grade. Uh, when I was looking at it, I knew that I would be able to solve this, but I don't know these formulas right now. So that's where I was. So initially, like my idea was, so initially I started out with Manhattan, and that was one of the first mistakes that I made. I was skimming through it lightly. I wasn't really going into how do I apply it. I was initially, I really didn't understand what this test was. So I would just skim through it, get the idea of it, what the problem was. I would do that before my work hours in the morning. Uh, and then I would try to squeeze in the later, but that would get really tiring. So I would mostly try to do it in the morning hours. And yes, I mean, that's initially how it went. But then later on, I've always been morning person. Like my final test also, I took it 8 a.m. slot. So that's how it was there. So that's what I was building as well. The jump actually did not happen because of the number of hours or anything. It was how I changed the same amount of hours to the quality. Initially, I didn't have the
Yes.
quality. Yeah,
Quality over quantity. Yes. Thank you.
definitely.
Thank you. Oh, that's so important. I'm so glad you said it. And by the way, not to interrupt, when you said Manhattan, you meant Manhattan GMAT prep. So MGMAT, correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
So
It,
initially
it,
I didn't finish it. So I was trying to see how much of progress I'm making. I didn't really make, I started studying from the books, but I didn't make a lot of progress with it. It's nothing to do with the books. It's if you take the same books with the right mindset, you'll be able to do it. That's the point. That's the difference. So then, because that wasn't really making a difference for me at that point of time, that's when I took the EGMAT course. And in my debrief also, I've mentioned that I am not really like writing against or giving a negative review. It's just whenever irrespective of whatever the course that we are taking, it's very important that we are taking it with a pinch of salt. They are giving us the concepts, they are giving us the strategy. We have to see, is it really fitting for us? For any question type, I didn't. So for me, I thought I went with the mindset that, oh, I have taken the course now. I have to do this. I was approaching it from how in high school or in college, we had a syllabus, right? We were reading all of that syllabus and we knew that we were done for the exam. That's the same sort of approach that I took with that course as well, which was one of the biggest mistakes that I made at that point of time. I
well,
mean,
so at least you knew.
I I mean, I did not know it then. By that time, I'd already built the bad habits. So what probably, I mean, I'm not here to just point out the problem, but also the solution. So if whatever the course that you are taking, the idea would also be to just incorporate from like Magoosh, Manhattan, all of these guys are saying a lot of good, Veritas, uh, Even Karishma has come up with Angular. So all of these, I mean, probably just give yourself once a week some dosage of blog about what the exam is or something, all of that. So that you're not doing it in silos. For me, because I didn't have time, so I was doing it in silos where I was just approaching. I thought I'll be done with the course, I'll be done with the GMAT, I'll take it and I'll nail it. That's not how it goes. That's not how it did go for me. So the point is, it's not as labels to cover at the end, it's the habit that we have to hammer over and over again into the practice. It's way more about the practice. And and that practice, what sort of practice that I need to do comes from how well do I understand what exactly is the exam.
A lot to unpack there. First, I do want to say to anyone who's watching this video now or anyone who watches it in the future, I forgot to actually say this to you when we were prepping for this. We here want this to be completely unbiased, but more importantly, we want to be as open as possible. If you have a really bad experience with a prep company like eGMAT or MGMAT or whoever else you use, you can come on here and rip them, and we're okay with it. Like, yeah,
Yeah, no, I don't want to. I will. Okay. So the reason why I went into the direction of saying that, hey, I'm not here to give negative review is not to be like, okay. So it's not that I did not gain from it. I'm saying the point is, I did, for example, absolute values. It's just the courses are very long. Quant, I found
Yes,
it
they
was
are.
really long. Sentence correction of eGMAT is actually really nice. Again, however, if you stick to that, uh, I was I was effed. You could be as well if you just stick to one thing of taking it as an end in itself. That doesn't work. So I'm not saying that I did not gain anything at all from eGMAT. It's just that the way I approached it, with taking the course as in silos and taking it as an end in itself, that thinking that okay, one course is going to do it for me, that was wrong. So I did learn like Etsy. I don't know what would, so for the verbal, for sure, I don't know what I will replace it with, but I definitely had to. So their strategy is meaning. Look at the meaning. If we can go into that detail just to point out what exactly I'm trying to.
Yeah, this is your show.
So I mean, their strategy for SE is that you have to do the meaning first, and then you have to eliminate. Like you find out what the meaning is, sentence structure is, and then you break down, you find the error, and then you eliminate from the answer choices. Now that is right, and they emphasize a lot on meaning, and I don't know if I would have gotten it otherwise or not, but that's absolutely correct. Meaning is primary in SE, but that didn't work out for me when I started. I have mentioned it in the debrief as well that I reached 60 30 V3638 pretty like easy, but after that it was a downhill for me because I was I mean, yeah, I had to improve it. I knew that I could do better than that, but I couldn't really make it faster. The process was just not going faster for me. So I reached a point where I had just forgotten really what I had to do. So then I started really researching what exactly is the strategy. By the end, the strategy that was working for me is that I would look at the answer choices first, see what was the differences, but not really go into the splits, but get the focus of it. That okay, what are my cues? What are the things that I could focus on? And then go to the question, because SC can't be like, obviously there are too many things. If I go into pronouns and all of this, these things I can be lost if I have to do it. And so by the end of it, because I was looking at the cues first, then to the answer, then I knew what were the errors that I had to look on, and then I could eliminate fast. So what I did was, then I would write ABCDE, and then I would cross out the things as and when I could find out. So I became very mechanical with the initial. So this is, I mean, I'm a really big fan of GMAT. There was time when I was saying, oh, how would GMAT Ninja really approach this question? So I mean, that's, so my point is, it's my strategy was derived from the course that I was doing. It wasn't completely different from it, but I did have takeaways. So coming back to the original point, I did have takeaways from it, but you have to be really active about how you're using the course that you are taking.
Okay, again, a lot to unpack there. But I think the biggest takeaway for anyone watching is, and I've said this in all of our videos, and actually before I say this, I did not read Ayushi's debrief, and I say this for all videos, and I guess people ask me why. The simple answer is because I want to go into this as blank-minded as anybody else. I want to be able to put together the blanks in the story here, so that way our users can come away from this the same way I'm going to come away from this. Ayushi, you mentioned that you thought about how GMAT Ninja would approach a question and how he would solve it. That is the 100% correct way to approach every question. And why is that? It's because the GMAT is written by experts. GMAT Ninja is an expert. He's probably the smartest person on the entire forum. He's the one person I would never go toe to toe with on critical reasoning, just because I feel like I would lose, and I don't want that feeling. Even though I trust my critical reasoning skills, I don't want to go toe to toe with him because I think it would be a bloodbath and I would lose. I think, in fact, he would slaughter me. So between him and Bunel and all the other experts, Generis for sentence correction, all of them are showing you how they thought about the question and how they approached it. They showed you what they were thinking when they read each answer choice and how they eliminated it. So if you can make yourself think that way, you've beaten the test. That's how you need to do it. So bravo to you on that front. I do want to ask, you mentioned that you first approached it as siloed, and that you were getting different components of solving the questions from the various services you were using. I want to know how you then made the transition from that 400 to the increase where you talked about the quality of your studying. How were you able to modify your studying to go more to quality, not quantity? And when did you start seeing the jump in your score as a result of that shift in studying?
All right. So as I said that initially I started out with research where I did find out how error log is really important. So I was maintaining error log from the very first day, but I wasn't using it 100%. When I say my quality change, that was one of the very big reasons, one of the very major component of my quality increase. So there's this video of Magoosh where they go that you should never repeat a mistake. And initially when I was making mistakes, I was writing down as in taking note of what mistake am I making, why am I making this. But the very key thing that I wasn't really doing was to find out why did I make this mistake, to a point where the next time I have something very specific to change in my process, in the way I approach the problem. So again, I keep on repeating this point that GMAT is about how well do we apply the concepts that we know. We do not really need to know a lot of concepts. So there were a lot of times, for example, with the quant, and that's the one that I faced way more challenge with. So when I was approaching it, I would a lot of time attribute it to, hey, I don't know this concept, but I could still reason through it. If I was thinking about this problem, there were ways I could have still reasoned through it. So I was not really paying attention to that. That was how. So the change for me actually came in when I started looking at every single question as a way for me to build habits. Because on the day of the exam, we are in the autopilot mode. We just really aren't. And that's primary reason why I was able to do it despite my fever. Like I wasn't thinking my conscious brain, but I was just, oh, okay, I have to do it, that sort of thing, because I had built it into my skin, in my nerve, to do it in a certain way. I knew that when I'm looking at this question, I have to be very clear about what exactly am I solving. Then how do I solve this? So my whole one of the primary things was to look at the error log, see why exactly am I, what are my weaknesses, and then actually next day work on that. And when I'm saying that, I need to be very clear about what do I need to change. So the first thing is
yes, that is hysterical, and yes, Bunel is an AI. We've covered that before, but
yes,
wants to make sure that everyone is aware of it. Thank you, buddy.
yes.
But so please continue.
Yeah, I mean, so so very importantly, what exactly I need to change. I need to build that habit, every single thing. So not to focus on the strategy so much at the time of not to focus so much on the time when I'm building the strategy, but when I have the strategy in place, I have to be very sure that I am doing under the time pressure. So a lot of initially what we really underestimate the importance of 500 level questions. And I actually skipped the whole OG part of it where I was like, these are too easy, man. I just don't want to. I'm getting bored. But later on, what I realized was that I mean, it's important. Obviously we were able to do it way lesser time, but the importance is that I should be taking way less time in those 500 level questions, and it should be 100%. 500 and 600 levels should be 100% accuracy before I'm jumping to the 700. So my a lot of energy went into not lot I mean I was very conscious about that. It has to be 100% accuracy for 500, 600. 90 doesn't do it. So yeah, so what I started doing was really put in time pressure for even the 500s. I would take, say, a set of 10 and then do it 1 minute per question. So once I built that into me, then I knew, and because I was doing that under the time pressure as well, I kind of realized that, okay, these are the gaps in my understanding. I know it, but I wasn't very comfortable with the concept. So that's the second thing that was there. After the strategy is in place, OG question does it all. We do not need more than that. But I made the mistake of burning through it. Those questions are precious. Treat it that way. Absolutely treat it that way. For verbal, after
That's
the
no
strategy is in
bueno.
yes, and after the strategy is in place, just do not go into the other. I made that mistake of practicing the other ones because I wanted to keep it for the last, but then I was just building because other prep companies, and this has been said too many times, that other prep companies do not, even GMAT Club do not have the resources to create the quality of the questions that are that the official questions have. It's just not possible because
May I say
it's just
one thing about that?
yes, yeah.
For verbal, I completely agree. You cannot use anything beyond the official guides, and so the official ones, and then if you're talking about CR and RC, LSAT. Beyond that, I mean, and maybe GRE mixed in there too, but beyond that, you are going to get questions that are going to enforce some really bad habits on you because the quality
Exactly.
isn't there. And yeah, we at GMAT Club, if you ever take our computer adaptive tests, no, the
I
mocks,
have.
our verbal sucks. It is
Yeah.
terrible. Ignore it. Run away from it. You cannot get anything from those. So ignore them. The quant, different story. Quant,
Definitely.
you can get a fairly good representation of a quant question from almost anybody. Verbal, even us, we blow. We suck. Stay away from us for verbal. That said, please continue.
No, I definitely agree, and it's very important that for the quant also, I agree that the quality of the question is there, and this the one good thing I did for myself was to stop obsessing about 700 completely. Like, I was paying a lot of it was when I was really comfortable with it, but I still made sure that I was doing the easy ones as well. So for example, if I'm doing 6 questions of verbal, I would do one 500 level, two 600 level, and then for three 700 or four 700 level. That sort of division, so that because the kind of the problems change, that obsession over 700 is something that blows us down because we start thinking only on those terms, but the traps that are there in the easier ones are really different from that. So it's very important to stay in touch. That's one thing is there. And I think I'll just mention the last part is the mocks. Now there are a lot of myths, and we in the GMAT club also has done a lot, so probably go through those posts where they have mentioned about the myths that are there about that. But some of the myths that I had was when I was taking, so I had take 3 of the officials after, like, I took the free ones earlier on. Mocks are absolutely important. Take it when you have really like I would that gave me a very good direction, and I was able to really jump on the quality when I was actually squeezing out everything from the mock. I would just for the next after I was done with the mock, for the next 20 minutes right off, I would sit and just take look into the time I had spent on each question. I just took that, took note of the kind of the questions that were there. So I had this idea where if I have done well, the next question is going to be difficult. That's just one of the myths that it's not how that goes. So for example, in one of the mocks, I was getting super easy questions one after another, and I was so annoyed that that came into my performance. I was like, am I doing that bad? Why am I not getting difficult questions? And that emotions play a lot. I was preparing for that. Now I knew that, okay, just leave it. I mean, whatever the question is coming, be prepared to let it go. If I'm not able to do it at certain point of time, yes. And that's another thing that I did. I would just,
What
there were
was that
times,
time?
so for CR, I had a time limit. I would do it between 1:30 to 2 minutes. 2 minutes was a good, and if it was really difficult, then I would do it take a little more than two. SC around 1:30 plus minus little, and RC was the same as CR. So I mean, for me, all of them were balanced sort of a thing. For quant, it was 2 minutes, and I knew that 3 minutes, after 2 minutes, I am not almost there. Then I have to let it go. And you know how I built that in was, shout out to the Manhattan blogs for that. They pointed out that you have to. So they gave a good exercise where they said that, start the timer and press when you think it's 1 minute mark. Press when you think it's 1 minute mark. And I did that for some time only. But what that did was
Ooh.
built that 1 minute timer inside me, so that when I was reaching that 2 minutes, it would just make me uncomfortable that, hey, I'm crossing my time limit. So then I was like, oh, I have to skip. So and in the practice, what I would do was that whenever I was practicing, I was making sure that I was doing it with the mindset that I'm sitting in the exam room. That happened for me later on. That did not happen to me earlier on. So when I was doing this, I have to approach it as, this is a problem I have to solve. Am I going to invest my time in this problem or not? If I am going to invest my time into this, I have to do it in certain time period. If not, let it go. And after that, I will really push myself to know the how do I solve this question. But at that point of time, always timed, which initially also I did, but not really as consciously. So yeah, so mocks, I took the I really squeezed out into what are my weak areas, and also I would go one after another to get an idea of, okay, so this was my thought process when I was approaching this. And because I was doing it right after I took the mock, I knew that this was my emotion. So that was the time when I was taking my emotion factor in as well, that this is why I went for this one this way. Because I realized that there were times when initially when I that's when I really doubled down onto my time thing. I spent 4 minutes on certain question, and I did solve that one after 4 minutes. But then I realized the next one I wasn't able to solve it because I had taken so much time for the first one. So I mean, that really affects you of how the emotional state is. So mocks was giving me an overall idea of what are my weak areas, and I would really make it sure that it wasn't like inequalities. By the end of it were my jam. Like I loved when they would come pop up. Even in my final, there was some inequalities like, oh, I love this question. But also another thing, like there were times when I would get too excited and I would miss something for because I was too excited.
Mm-hmm.
So I
Makes
mean,
sense.
yeah. So it's just the nuance of how well. By the end of it, my motto was, if I'm not going to practice it well, just not study at all. I would rather not study than study and build bad habits. If I'm giving whatever time, it is really, really important that I'm building the good habits in that amount of that period of time.
I understand. Let me ask. Uh, when it came to your studying habits, you just said if you didn't want to, or if you didn't feel you were going to have good habits that day, no, just don't study at all. How did your studying differ from your starting point to your ending point? You said at first it was siloed. I assume towards the end you mixed a little more quant and verbal. How many questions a day were you doing? I mean, how long were your reviews each day because I assume what you did and you sort of talked about it during your CAT, you were breaking down each question and reviewing it to see what you did wrong and to analyze what happened. So what was that like as you progressed in your studying?
So initially, I was actually approaching from the quantity. I thought I'll do more questions and I'll be able to do it. I That's how I actually ended up burning a lot of OG questions early on, which now, because I knew I wasn't in position to make the best out of it. Um, so initially there were times even when I would like, oh, probably have to do 80 questions sometimes if I have like that whole day on me. But later on, my idea was that I would take say set of 20 questions. What I would do was, I have in my debrief, I mentioned a link which has actually mentioned all the OG questions. So what I did was, I would create sort of subset of uh, say, uh, say 36 questions for verbal and 31 questions for quant.
Mm-hmm.
I would create a set of them, and then I would do. So it was really important. I had to choose between doing all of them at once and reviewing at the end, but
Yep.
that I realized wasn't really working for me, because uh, I would
By the way,
get
I'm not
too
laughing at
tired.
you. I don't
The
know if
dog.
anybody can hear all the noise going on in the background right now. It sounds like there's a riot going on in my house. Please continue. I just want everyone to understand that no, the world wasn't ending, and I understand the noise, and there's nothing I can do about it. So just laugh at it. Please
Was not
continue, please.
handling hopefully. But
No,
yeah,
it
I would
isn't.
create those subsets. Yeah, I would create those subsets on the GMAT club itself, so like those tabs of it. And the next day, so what I would do was, this 6 minutes, which really worked for me, was that I would solve six of those, and with a very like a timed, obviously, like I have to do it in certain time periods. So for me the timestamps were 44:22 actually, which overlapped for both quant and verbal.
Mm-hmm.
You are really trying to not pay attention to the dogs, aren't you?
I'm paying attention to you. I'm trying not to pay attention to him.
That's all
Please
right.
continue.
Yes. So, but yeah, I mean, so I would look at it and see what really high. So I was constantly, for me, how I'll tell you a little inside my head was, uh, hey, verbal god. So what I would try to
It's
do.
an unofficial nickname. That no, that's one of our
Uh-huh.
moderators, by the way.
Uh, oh, I did not know that. All
But please
right.
continue. Again,
So
there have been so many interruptions during this answer, so please.
so no, when I was doing six of those, I would basically have a look at it, that what were my strategies inside my head. I knew I had certain. So for CR, for RC, for SC, and even the quant and the DSPS, both of them, I had a very specific strategy that I was constantly building and refining. So for me, that was that if I am making any mistake, making sure that for the next six of them, I'm not making those mistakes. So that's how it would go for me. So it was a constant uh, practicing and review of it, so that I'm really building it into my habit. So the difference really was in terms of how well I was reviewing and how conscious I was about building those habits. I can't really emphasize enough. It is really at the end of how well I perform, do not perform, is on how strong are my habits to look at a problem in a certain way.
That's again, as I guess we hit on a little bit earlier. That's the best way to do it. You need to
Yeah.
build from the fundamentals. You need to analyze where you went wrong. You need to see how you built things up, and then you can solidify it. So hopefully, you don't make the same mistake again. I don't agree
And
with Magoosh where they're like, "Oh, just no, you made this mistake. Just analyze it and don't do it again." You know how hard it is not to make the same mistake again.
no, but it's really important that it's I'm sorry, I would agree a little on, because that did serve me good in terms of I knew like initially. So what I would do the next day when I was looking at it, quickly review what were the mistakes that I made the last time, and the next day I would make sure. So there were times, you know how, so little talking in the product manager way of like, so how there are times when we're working on the software, right, and we've built the software and there's debugging happening. I mean, you debug one thing and there's another bug that arrives. So I mean, yes, not make a mistake to a point where if I really know that this is where I'm making a mistake. For example, very, very specific, I would miss the constraints in my quant a lot. I would miss the small little details like these are different integers, or these are, 0 is not allowed. So what I did was, over a period of time, I built in the strategies. It did not even occur to me. So if I'm repeating a mistake, I'm at least conscious about it, that, okay, I devised this strategy and this did not work for me. So the next time I'm going to devise a different strategy. So for example, by the end of it, I was looking at, I was pinning down everything on the number line. For me, when I knew that it's an integer, it's a positive integer, for me that meant, oh, it's the minimum value is 1. And I have to constantly think in terms of what are the possible answers. So this was something that helped me, because I was building on that progress. I knew that, okay, this was a strategy. So there were times when, even for CR, that I mean, the strategy that I devised, and the second time, so the strategy that I devised, and then I came across problem. I devised another strategy and realized that it was causing me another set of problems. So then the next time, because I was very conscious about not repeating the mistakes, then I revised my strategy. So that constant staying in touch with what the error log is basically, so we were discussing about the course, right? But the error log gives us a personalized guideline towards how to reach our target score.
Love the error log.
Yep.
You guys should all use it. By the way, CR
Yes.
is notorious for, oh, you think you figure something out and then you try to apply the rule consistently and you've created 10 more problems for yourself. So makes sense. I want to ask you about your cats and your scores, but before I do, I was reading some of the comments, and this lovely gentleman decided to say, bro, she's cute. It's a little late for Valentine's Day by about 17, so about by 5
And I
days.
have a girlfriend.
There we go. So tough luck, buddy. Try next time. Although I will say, I want so badly to have a GMAT club, like actual wedding. Like I want somebody to meet on GMAT club, a couple to meet on GMAT club, and get married. That if I will die a happy man if I can get a GMAT club wedding. So, just so you know, if you want to make Nightblade happy, that would be one way to do it. But anyways, back to the debrief.
That'd be interesting.
Oh, I'm pulling for it. I'll take the bullet. I'll do it. If I have to be the one who gets a GMAT club wedding, I'll do it. But I want somebody else to do it. So, guys, help me out here. Start finding your soulmates. Do it for the kid. Do it for the king. Do it for the verbal lord that somebody called me earlier. But anyways, I want to go to your cats. How many mocks did you take during your studies?
So I did take about, I mean, initially that's actually, to think about it now,
He's not kidding, by the way.
I really get it. Like
every moderator meeting, I bring this up. But please continue.
This is the first time I'm hearing that, but okay. Cool. I hope that really happens. But coming to the mocks, so
yes,
I actually I wanted to take the official one, so I bought the 3 to 6. I had taken the first one at the beginning, which is where I got the humiliating score. Then I took the second one,
what was
where
your
I
breakdown
did score.
On that?
I really don't remember. I actually
okay.
I don't even have, because they have changed the platform as well, so I can't even access it. But it's gone. And the next time I took all three of them, all 4 of them, but the 6th one ran into an error. I was hoping to retake, because there's one reattempt allowed for 3 to 6, but that did not work, because they would repeat a lot of this. A lot of the questions would get repeated, and there was no point of it. Like, it wasn't really going to give me the good idea on how much progress I've made. So 4 of those otherwise, and yeah, I think I took 4, and then I took 1 or 2. I took 1 GMAT club, and then 1 I took off 800 score, which, by the way, just shot my score to another level. Like, for verbal, I scored 49. I mean, no, I was like, I'm not at this level. I know it. I know I could be. I think I am beyond 40, but 49, no. And GMAT club is one I took, so about 6 to 7.
And how periodically did you take them? Was it maybe once a month, once every 2 months? Was it when you felt you were ready for that next progression and you want to check in?
Mm-hmm. So initially, I actually took it once or twice a month, and then towards the end. So basically, so I took my final GMAT in Jan, towards the end, around 25th Jan, I think. And but the last mock I took was in December, and I really
Okay.
wanted to take a mock after that, but I couldn't because of how the officials weren't working for me. So how I told you that they were running into the errors that kept on happening for me again and again. I wrote to them, I didn't get any response. It's their new platform which isn't really working that well. So yeah, I mean,
Shocker.
the last one I took was the last one was in December. That was once a week, sort of, so that I have an idea of where do I need to work on this week.
Uh, okay, Harsh. I will get to questions in about probably 5 minutes. I have a couple more questions for Ayushi, and then we will skip to you guys. So I apologize about taking so long here. Um, how long? So when did you get your 400? When, like timing wise?
I would be around June, July, June of
Okay, so
2021.
we're talking about a 7 to 8 month study period, give or take. Correct?
Yeah, yeah,
So that's
yeah.
all it takes, guys. 8 months to go from 400 to 720. You can do it. You really can. Um, I have two more questions, as I said, and then we'll hop to our user questions. The first being, how did you deal with the adversity of test day, knowing you had a fever? Knowing you weren't feeling well, I don't know if it was COVID, I don't know if it was the flu, I don't know if it was just a bug,
It
but
wasn't
how did you
COVID.
deal with that? Because I really want VIX to start sponsoring this session.
So no, I
So
actually,
please.
it wasn't COVID. Thankfully, it was a viral fever. It was the changing weather, and changing weather brings, so a lot of people were generally getting sick. My parents were sick few days before me. I was with them at that point of time. And I How did I deal with it? Honestly, I was really down. I was really upset the day before the exam, because I felt like, because I wasn't, for the 2 days before the exam, I honestly slept through the day.
Mhm.
I did not study. I did 10 questions because I thought I mean, I need to be in touch with it. And there were some revisions that I had to do, I thought, but I did not revise any formulas or anything. I because That was part of the doing it in the last a day before. Not a day before the exam, I didn't want to really do that much, but 2 days before the exam I wanted to. So that was the time when I was like, I would revise the formulas and all of that, but I really didn't have the energy. I was like, just get my body in shape at least, man. So I was just sleeping throughout the day. The day before the exam, I was honestly, the night before the exam, I was really upset. I thought tomorrow I was gonna bump, but then, in my head, I was, man, I have really worked myself through it. I am gonna nail it. Freaking just, just. I mean, I can't really have that emotion coming in my head now. So I mean, there was, but I was trying to push myself through it that I can.
You
So
guys so
the day
pumped
into
up
the exam, I
mentally.
just went, yeah. So the day, and it was 8 a.m. So I mean, I told you I'm a morning person. So but the next day, I
Mm.
usually my schedule was to wake up. I like waking up at 5 6 if I am having a good day. So but the next day I wasn't really, like, I didn't wake up on time. I didn't do any of the regular things that I thought I'll do on the exam day. So nothing really actually went as planned because my body wasn't in the place. My thing was that I'll just get up. One of the very important things for me was, because it was very early morning, so right off this, I wanted to warm up. So I did some of I did like five questions for verbal and quant before my exam. And yes, I ate food, and my center was 1 hour away from my house. So I had to,
Oof.
not 1 hour, like 30, no, 30 minutes away from my house. So I went there, and yeah, I mean, I reached early. So I was just sitting, as it is, I was sitting and reading through the news generically, just to get in the groove of reading stuff. And that was something that I have actually done. Even in the when I'm taking I would take the test, I would actually pay attention to I would try to read the sentences before in the sections, so that I'm just warm up for reading afterwards when I'm reading the questions. So that was that. So I mean, during the exam, I wasn't really thinking a lot. I was just in the autopilot mode. Even in the verbal reasoning, I knew that I wasn't at my best, obviously. um, how I told you that RC was usually my strength, but RC didn't really turn out, like, even when I was reading it, there were times when I felt like I'm not registering the words the way I would otherwise. So I was just going through the questions and I was just really writing it. I mean, I was just doing it. And all the things that I was telling you about the habit, that really kicked in, because I was really habitual about solving questions certain way. So
Muscle
that
memory.
was just happening. Muscle memory, correct.
Now,
So yeah, I mean, I
if I'm
wasn't.
remembering
So
my if I'm remembering my biology and anatomy correctly, I don't think the brain is a muscle, but for this, I'm gonna say that it is.
I feel, I mean, I don't know, like, if I am the only person or is this happens with everyone. In the exam environment, you are not really yourself. You're just a little different person, because it just goes into like, autopilot is the word that I've used over and over again, but that's really like how it just goes. You are not really consciously, the previously I thought like, oh, I will be doing very this cautious, like, consciously, but that doesn't happen. It's just that's the reason, like, there were times when people said that they scored 710 on the mock and then scored 650, and that really scared the shit out of me. I was like, am I going to bomb it like that?
Can we watch a language? I'm a child. I don't want swearing on my YouTube
I'm sorry, I'm
videos.
really sorry, I'm
It's
sorry.
okay.
I'm
It's
really sorry.
okay. We'll edit it out. We'll bleep it out. We'll do something.
Yeah.
But please continue.
No, so my whole idea was that uh, I have to really look at the road ahead when I was trying. So if you go through anyone, there a few of the debriefs that I've seen, there were people who were actually, they've always felt shit. Sorry again. I'm really sorry. They have
You know, we
felt
pay
not
money
really
per
nice.
bleep here. Just so you're aware of
I'm
how
so
that works.
sorry. But hey, that's just human excreta, so we shouldn't be really that much here. All right. Anyway, so the point is,
Please continue.
a lot of people so people, when people are taking the exam at that point of time, we're not really in peop so as I was taking the exam, I was actually thinking that I'm not really going through it in the best form, because it's an adaptive test. The question keeps on getting, like, the difficulty keeps on getting increased. So we are bound to come to a point where we are not going to be able to understand what the question is. So we are supposed to feel miserable at the point of test. So even a 770 scorer or even an 800 scorer comes to, at least they were mentioning that how they didn't expect the score to be so high for them, because some of the debriefs that I was looking at, they actually said that, oh, I was not feeling, like, I didn't think that I would score so much. And it was the same thing for me, that I was feeling sort of, I wasn't feeling miserable. I was feeling actually okay because I had done those sets. But throughout, I was feeling, uh, I wasn't really getting an idea of how and how much uh, the emotional state was. It's something that we have to be trained. We have to be trained to feel uncomfortable throughout.
Interesting. Couple of things to unpack. Then one more question. I know we're sort of going over time. Harsh, I apologize about that. Um, it's not exclusive to you, that feeling of autopilot. That's why you study. You need to be able to be on autopilot. So that way, when you take the exam and when you feel uncomfortable, you can still operate. You can still function appropriately. So that's exactly what should happen. Now, I will say that I can sympathize with you. I took an LSAT exam with a fever as well, and I gotta say, it was not a it was not a, barrel of laughs there. It was not a lot of fun. So I sympathize with what you went through. Last question, and then I will go to our users because they are being very patient. But first, what the heck does that mean? Everyone's a critic. Um, is there anything that we didn't cover in this in the information that you wanted our users to know? Was there one thing that was in the back of your head that you were hoping I would ask you that I didn't get to?
So we did talk about, I think we covered most of it. Like, I really can't think of something that's specific as such. There was something, so it's really about the details of how we are going about study. Shorter amount of time, but more efficient in terms of what is the success criteria at the end of this study session, like what exactly I'm looking to get out of it. More is that specified, more can I get at the end out of it. So yeah, I mean, that's one thing. So I mean, I am open. Strategies can be different for different people, but it's very important that that strategy is really refined. uh, we develop, how I said that there were times when I really attributed something to that I don't know, but actually I realized that I could still reason through it. For SC, for CR, for RC, I knew that I have the skill sets and I have to be able to reason through it. So every single time I have to know that what is my process like to be able to make those decisions. So yes, I mean, and yes, the one thing of letting go, yeah. I mean, so whole that emotional thing, like using that mocks to uh looking at the whole GMAT as a one holistic thing of how am I looking at it. So probably there are barriers. The one thing that really served me good was to just once in a while go through the blogs, and if there were some concepts that weren't making, so after, like, a concept shouldn't really take a lot of time. Once that is done, OG question, if we are coming across anything, there's no simple mistake. There's no stupid mistake. Never ever. That was initial mistake that I made. That I initially thought that I'm not bad. For 80% of us, if we were given enough amount of time, we will be able to do the questions. It's the time pressure that we are not able to deal with. So never let it go in terms of, hey, I know this. Next time I will not do it. So yeah, I mean, that is something.
Wonderful. I think that was a nice ribbon on or bow to tie off everything that you had talked about. Now, we do have some questions. There's good news, bad news here. And the bad news I'll give first.
All
Um,
right.
the bad news is that because one of our moderators was having a lovely chat in the group chat over here, a lot of the earlier questions got wiped out because I actually didn't know this. There is apparently a chat limit, and it kept deleting messages as more messages were put into the chat. So therefore, we don't have all the questions asked at the beginning. So for those of you who did ask something at the beginning, I sincerely apologize that I cannot access them. So that's the bad news.
You
Good news is,
can reach out.
yes. So the good news is you can post questions on this video, and Ayushi will hopefully, I hope, go and
I'll try
answer
my
a
best.
couple of them. Uh, as for the good news, once more, there's more good news. That means we have less questions, meaning that this won't run too over. I mean, we were slotted for an hour, and we're clearly going to go over that, but it's not going to be like an hour and a half over. So the first question that we have here comes from that moderator I mentioned, and he asks very simply that a lot of our aspirants get frustrated by repeated failures to score 700 plus, and even he did before he got his score. If you can give some insights into how you manage said stress, the community would be grateful. I agree with him on that.
All right. So I'm a big person for meditation. That's something that actually is part of my life. For me, whenever I was stressful, it's just that would come in. Uh, I mean, that just is how I deal with stress generically in my generally in my life. So that's how it worked for me. And even if you are not someone who meditates generally, can start doing that. But other than that, also just probably, yeah, another thing, like when I was looking at the that clarity, if you can get, and that's not something that I can give out as a general answer for that is going to be applicable for everyone, but whatever the emotion, whatever the stress is coming, has certain reasons behind why the stress is coming in the first place. If we can find out what is the reason behind it, we are in a good position to do something about it. So probably the one thing that can happen is, why is that stress coming? Where is that coming from? What can we do about it? If we reach a point where we can do something about it, we are in a better situation than we were before. I hope that helps.
It does. And wait, where are my hands here? How do I turn this way? Hang on.
I don't get
Bunny
it.
ears.
What?
Really weird bunny ears. Like that. Screw it. I didn't do it right. I don't care. Um, tell me one thing. I scored a 700 on my first try. Messed up because of my bad headache. Do you think I should take it again? Oh, this is for me. Um, I mean, schools will take your highest score. If you think you can do better and you feel like you didn't perform optimally because you had a headache, there's no harm in taking it again. The only loss is studying more. That's the only loss of time. So I would recommend that you do that. All right. Da, 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 da. Same guy. What were your previous scores before the 720 official GMAT score? So I think what he's asking is, we went over CAT scores a little bit. Did you take an official GMAT prior to the 720?
I took one, and do you mean the official GMAT before the 721?
Yeah, like an actual score.
All right, so I did take one, and in that it was 600,
Okay.
which was actually because of really messed up headspace. And because a mock that I took before 600, I did take one mock where I scored 690. I took another mock in GMAT Club, where I scored 710. Uh, so yeah, I mean, I wasn't really doing that bad on the mocks, but it really did not work out on the final test. So yeah, I did have that score. So in the one that I was mentioning about in December, I had 690, 710, 710.
Wonderful. All right. This comes from, I'm sorry, I'm not going to pronounce names because I'm just going to butcher them and really solidify the fact that Americans are so ignorant beyond Germanic and European names, which we are. I fully admit that. I can't pronounce names to save my life. His question: how did you take notes of the good habits that you were learning while studying? Was it error log only or handwritten notes? Was it mental models? Was it diagrams? Please enlighten us.
Good habits, as in, okay, so for me, the error log was maintained on Google Sheets. I would just, that would be easier because I was doing questions on GMAT Club, so I could just easily copy paste the link for later reference. So it had further columns of what was the mistake I made, why did I make the mistake, and the next time. So obviously I wasn't writing everything meticulously, but I was taking like a small portion of it so that the next time I know what's the deal. For the mocks, I was very I was trying to be as much detailed because that gave me a lot of information of, okay, this is how I approached the whole test. So yeah, Google Sheets was it for me.
Wonderful. By the way, one of our moderators apparently can see all the questions. For those of you who don't know the setup here, I've got like four monitors going on, but my camera's my phone, so I can't really scroll up that high for some reason. So that's why I may be limited. But one of our moderators is going to post said questions below, or a couple of them. So hopefully that answers those who waited around this entire hour. And if you did, kudos to you. Bravo. That is a tractor pull right there. I can't even listen to myself for an hour. Or they're blowing my ears off. But can you tell us about some resources which are useful for beginners?
Um,
It's
so
okay
as
if
I
you
meant,
don't have
yeah, I
any.
mean,
That's fine.
I mean, I wouldn't really like, initially I took the Manhattan and the EGMAT only. By the time I was done with it, I had the basic structure in place. I wouldn't say those are the most efficient. Veritas, I felt, was good for quant. For verbal, SC for EGMAT was good. RC I didn't like so much. CR was also good, but you will want to be active-minded about that.
I'd recommend my CR guides and stuff, but I'm not biased. How could I be? Um, uh, this from a man
Did
who
help
thought you were
me.
very cute. He wants to know what your
Okay.
Instagram is. You do not have to give it out.
It's actually my GMAT club username. So
And
go
what is your
figure.
GMAT Club username?
It's AEYVEI.
There you
AEV.
go. To all the stalkers. You now have her Instagram. Go hog wild. Um, oh, geez, guys, how many questions are there here? All right. So this is starting, I guess, from the past ones. I'm not in touch with. By the way, I don't know why it's. I guess to Americans we say math. We don't make it plural. So when I read math,
We say
that's what's
mathematics.
right, mathematics, but the abbreviation of that is math, not math stuff. For whatever reason, again, America does what America does. I'm not in
India follow
touch.
UK English now. That's why I think. I don't know if it's called maths in UK.
I had a friend from the UK. She said maths.
Yeah, see?
So I
So
don't
we
know.
follow UK English. We have a dark history.
So I'm not. Yeah, well, we beat the British, so no, we're the winners. We can do what we want.
Yeah.
I am not in touch with mathematics and haven't been since my high school days. What is your advice for me?
I would say, all right. So I mean, honestly, for me, when I was getting through study maths, I was really happy. I was personally very happy because I was getting to read it. After the reason I did not study maths after my college, after my high grade was this. So for me, for where I wanted to go in life, but whatever the courses that I was taking, I mean, this question has been already taken in terms of the EGMAT and the Manhattan. When I was reading through it, is the same thing. So probably when you are going through any question or anything and you come uh, uh, across a concept that you're not really sure about, the GMAT club. I mean, they have really put out, for example, for inequalities or for coordinate geometry or everything basically has been put out. There are a lot of notes and stuff. So for me, I'm a person who would club in multiple sources so that I have good amount of it. But also the caution: just don't go overboard with it to a point where not everything needs to be known about everything. So limited in terms of there are few things that are there in GMAT club, like all those things are enough. So after a point, probably those 500 level questions are a good way to build that up. So because they seem easy, if you come across a question that you do not know about, that's where actually the concepts come in the most. So yeah, I
Couldn't
mean, I
agree
would say
more.
that work through the 500 level questions to be sure that the concept scope is covered.
Next question again from our very helpful moderator and Tom. Thank you, buddy. So I assume this is what was your quant score from the 720?
I scored Q48. Uh, I was hoping for better,
Very
but
nice.
okay. So, but for quant, my deal was initially. So I had a very strong strategy for verbal. For me, like, I mean, I loved doing CR. I loved that cracking those questions because I was able to do 75, 85% hard questions. And I was like, hey, I got it. But for quant, it would beat me. A lot of times it would beat me. So what I did was that, okay, I thought I will not be able to do. I would not stress about say 95% or 85% all the times. I had my scope set that this, again, 500, 600, 100% accuracy. There's just no way around it. If there are mistakes that I'm doing these, I have to really correct it. For 700, I was paying attention, but there were some things which were way beyond my scope. I didn't obsess over it. That was something changed in the later part of my preparation. Initially, I was obsessing over 700 a lot. Um, for me, PS and DS, I had again like some strategy. For PS, I would make sure that I'm looking at the answer choices first, getting the idea about, say, units, getting some sort of clues possibly. If they are 41, 42, 43, then I know that I have to be very precise. But if they are far apart, I know that I can estimate. Then, if the unit digit is, say, odd or even, then there's some clue. Basically, looking at that first, operating in terms of what are my possible answers. So I would read the question, and the idea is that I have to make sure that. So initially, I was making a lot of mistakes with the constraints that were there. But later on, what I started doing was that I have to think with those constraints. Constraints are my friends. It is telling me what are the possible answers. So when it told me that it's a positive integer, I know my possible answers are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So, and then I would keep on narrowing down till the time I would reach a certain point. I loved the DS questions, uh, wherein obviously we are not looking at the statements. But again, my possible answers are: is it yes, no, or is it multiple values? So just basically really diving into what sort of mistakes am I making. Like my brother, he scored Q51, and I was like, man, give me something. You have to teach me how to. He's been struggling with verbal a lot, so he hasn't really done like the final of it. But like quant, he just is great at it. So, but he told me that you have to have like how you're looking at the problems, there's just not that many variety of it. There are framework of how you are solving the problem. Be sure. So any question that would take me more than 2 minutes, or I did not know, I had absolutely no idea what the question was, or yeah, I mean, I wasn't really comfortable with the idea, so I would put it in my error log with what section, like what kind of question was it, arithmetic, geometry, or what was it. And then basically I would go back to those questions, see, revise it every other day, see that what are these. So that what it did for me was build a mental structure in my head of how do I solve these problems. So there were times there's this some question which seems like it's one concept, but it is actually some other concepts. So it seemed like it's a work rate problem, but it was actually progression question. It was about this. So seeing through those problems is what I focused on later. I hope that helps.
It does. That's called progression. Let's see here. Teha or Taha, again, I am so sorry. I can't do names. Is GMAT the most important parameter for applying to B school? I took the GMAT today and scored a 416. First off, no, congratulations for at least taking the test. You've taken the first step. I'm not a consultant, so take my advice with a grain of salt. What I can tell you is from what I've learned, from what I've heard, from interacting with business school adcoms, from talking with consultants, the business school application process truly is holistic. A score is one component of it. Is it the most important? I mean, everything in my mind seemed to have equal weighting. Meaning, if you had a very high GPA and you had a really good career trajectory and you had been promoted a couple of times and you were taking the world by storm, obviously, a 400 probably doesn't get you into Harvard. But if you're at 650 or 680, which is a couple tiers below what they're looking for on average, they'll probably say, we can give this person a shot. But again, that is not legally binding advice. Do not sue me if you get a 680 and you have everything that I just said, you apply and you'll get in. Just my 2 cents. Harsh, to say I didn't take your question. Either we had answered it already during this hour 15 long video or I missed it. So if that's the case, please let me know. I mean, post your question and maybe Ayushi can get to it after. Um, Jade, I'm so sorry, wants to thank everyone for their invaluable information and advice. Ashish, and correct me if I'm wrong, you used MGMAT, EGMAT, and then you used the official guide, correct?
Correct. That's
Okay,
about it. GMAT club questions for anything that I wasn't really sure on. So I would just go on that topic and then create set of like for 5 to 10 questions at a time and then solve those till I was comfortable with them.
Perfect. Jad, for the GMAC official guides, are questions in each edition different? Is it advisable to do them all? Yes, do them all. Use them sparingly. As Ayushi said, they're, especially for verbal, those are it. I mean, you gotta be really careful with them. Treat them like gold. There is overlap, but there are always new questions in each book. And is it like 60 new questions per book or something like that? Anyways, the books will tell you how many new ones there are in each one. But yes, do make sure to take advantage of them. Please mention the resources. Geez, okay. Wow, what? All of you guys are having a conversation. What resources did you use to improve your reading comprehension?
So for reading comprehension was the one thing that was really on my side, given my background. I did not really spend so much time on RC. The only thing that I had was I mean, coming from sociology background, I have had to read a lot in life in general. So for me, I was actually going through, and I mean, I was able to read through the passages fine enough. My problems were actually in terms of how I read the question and how I was approaching. So for RC, I honestly would not have the best answers. But I would suggest like the things that would work is to incorporate general reading on the daily basis. I can tell you what the way for me, the RC passages was, I would really try to switch into the tone of the author and feel, if that makes sense, like really feel the passage, what was it saying. So visualize it as much as possible, not go into like, oh, I have to visualize the details, because that doesn't work, but visualize the passage, like the whole paragraph at once, and really feel the passage. So once I would do that, I would do that. By the end of it, I would have a good idea of what the passage had to say.
Terrific.
By the way, LSAT passages are really nice.
Yes, they are terrific. So everyone is saying thank you. So she says thank you. Ansh says thank you. Taha, again, I am so sorry. So Himanshu, I can answer your question. For AWA, there's a guide. It's the most liked post on GMAT Club. It's by a user called Chinese Burned. I'm not sure how they come up with the name, but they did. It has an AWA guide. I think it's called like 6.0 AWA guide, and a lot of our users have used it. I went through it. Yeah, there we go. That's the full name. Use it. It will help you get at least a 4, if not a 5 or a 6, assuming you actually like follow the steps. It's fairly straightforward. I take it personally that my post isn't the highest rated, but that's neither here nor there. Harsh, I think you asked what her username on GMAT Club is. She spelled it out earlier when you asked about her Instagram. So not sure what else you're looking for here, buddy. But we are now up against almost an hour and 20 minutes, meaning we've gone way over time. Tom, thank you for all your help. To all of those who have watched for the full hour and 20, thank you so much. For everyone who just watched for a couple of minutes, I thank you very much. And I hope you guys got a lot out of it. Ayushi, thank you also for joining us here. You were a pleasure and a delight. And I know that our users, whoever they may be and whomever may watch this video, will get a lot out of this. Hopefully they'll feel better about their GMAT chances. Well, folks,
thank you so much for having me. And yes, I hope there were definite takeaways.
We don't know when the next live is, but we'll stay in touch and we'll make sure to advertise it better. This one, we were missing our the guy who usually helps me with this. So hopefully next time it'll be more people will be aware of it. So that way we can help more users. But yes, thank you so much. And to everybody, enjoy the rest of your weekend.